This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library.
Enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price you can get Truefire All Access for.
Okay, now I wanted to do this video because I was playing with the Sire the other day, and I was also playing with the Fender American Hotshot that they sent over. Now, in both of these cases, these are guitars that were sent to me by these companies. Now, this is not to necessarily trash any one company in particular. It's more just to try and give you like a fair comparison and a fair sort of close-up of what these guitars kind of look like. Because I think personally there's like an expectation that if you go for a US model of something, that you're going to be getting better sort of quality of work, better QC, and overall really a better guitar. And I think this is the thing that I think is hard to sort of separate from hype and bits and pieces like that, because obviously a company like Sire doesn't really have any legacy particularly, like historically or anything like that, and also is a company that is sort of hyped because you've seen videos maybe like this one and others where kind of people are talking about like how these guitars punch above their weight. So I just wanted to show you like these two guitars up close, and you can make your own judgment as to what you think of each of them. Also, like tonally, of course, they're different kind of guitars. You know, one's Strat-ish, one's Tele-ish, or one's a Tele. You know what I mean? But equally, like to get some idea, does one blow the other out of the water in terms of sounding right? And so that's kind of the concept with this video, really. I would say is, and this has been consistently the case for me, that any time that I put a Fender guitar next to pretty much any other brand, I don't know whether it's in my head or whether it's like definitely real, but I feel like I can recognize the Fender one as being the one that sounds most authentically Fenderish. And yeah, so that's one thing kind of out of the way that I found, like with this PRS Silver Sky, any of these bits and pieces, it's always like a little bit of an uncanny valley part of this, where it's like, yes, it looks like a Strat, but for some reason, does it sound as good as when I see, not as good even, or as Stratish as when I see the Fender headstock on it. I've not myself managed to kind of get over that thing yet, or even like a Fender player, to me, when I compare them to things like this, or the Fender Standard even, which I didn't necessarily love, I did think that it kind of sounded maybe more Fenderish than like the PRS Silver Sky SE, some of the other bits that I might have put up against it, even though that had like fairly cheap ceramic pickups in it. So that's kind of my thing, and it definitely extends. I think that's why, in general, along with the history part of things, you know, you're going to pay more, but also I think expect more from a Fender. Fender, I think themselves market as like a brand that you can trust, the most trusted guitar brand, that sort of stuff. So that sort of stuff is there. Now, if I play them just side by side, how much of this comes down to string gauge and stuff, I'm not entirely sure, because the Sires come out of the factory strung up with 10s. Now, I've not touched the guitars in terms of setup, except for I readjusted the saddles on this one, but if I just look down at these guitars, and I'll show you some close-ups, I do think I get a more air of quality about the Sire, to be totally honest with you. And that might seem like difficult to believe in some cases, but that is honestly how I feel about it. And, you know, I'm very grateful to both of these companies for trusting me to do videos with their with their guitars. But kind of that is what it is. Now, so, hardware, great. And this is one of the things that I think Fender do very well, is just like aesthetics, like things that match up well-designed things. Now, if I get in here, first of all, you might be able to see underneath that E string there that there's quite a substantial kind of, like something's fallen on that fretboard. Going along, you'll also see that there's finish kind of on the edge of these frets, which, if you do the maths on this, means that the fret job has been done off of the guitar body, right? Because you wouldn't finish this neck until it was on the body, and therefore if the frets still have finish on them, which I think you might be able to see, like there's a little bit of yellow tint there, it means that once the neck is on the guitar, it's not had more work done to it. Again, you can see like as well kind of the nut where that's there. Hardware, as I say, is going to be good. This is kind of typical of what I'm seeing from some of the Fenders that I've been sent, the American Vintage Luxe. So this is not to besmirch Fender, it's just to use it as like a touchstone. So this is like, okay, here you've got a guitar that is now sort of double that price, but similarly, like this is stainless steel frets, but you can still see sort of minor imperfections, I would call them. Again, like here. And again, this is not meant to sort of besmirch anything, and sorry if anyone at Fender is offended by this, but it's just like showing the reality of some of this stuff, I think. And it doesn't necessarily affect playability and stuff like that, but in terms of like first impressions when you pick it up out of the case, and relative to other bits and pieces. So this is a nice dark fretboard at least, and plays well, this guitar. Nut is cut pretty well, lubricated by the look of things. Here you see the difference where these fret ends clearly have been touched after finishing, because, well, you can just see that these have been rounded off. That is quite an important distinction, especially given that Hotshot Telly is a sort of £1,500 guitar, and like the signs seem to be there that the frets haven't really seen much attention with the neck actually attached to the body. Kind of interesting. Now, on the flip side, look, I haven't seen perfect work coming out of Sire all the time either, but just what I see here, to me, and let me know again if you think this is way off. Do feel free to share your thoughts in the comments about what looks kind of tidier to you. I have seen some messier Sire guitars than this for sure. So, you know, these are just a few examples that I'm looking at, but it, like, definitely, if I'm being 100% honest here, this to me, slightly higher nut, aside from maybe the nut, just is, I think, tidier craftsmanship. What do you think? Fit and finish and that, right? Let me know your thoughts on that part in the comments, because I think there is no real history to Sire, particularly, no sort of heritage, but are they kind of doing more for the pounds that you've spent on this instrument than Fender? Do they have to work harder than Fender to get you to spend the money on an instrument from them? I think potentially the answer is fairly obviously yes. But, you know, if it's, yeah, and maybe someone at Fender won't like me showing you this, but this is too bad. But you see some tooling marks there. This is a expensive guitar, right? You know, £1,500. I think you can just get some idea about what it is that we're comparing, right? And you can see there's some nut filings that have gone here, so at least that shows that a human has been on the job there. Again, some of these things, you know, like tooling marks on a fretboard, are maybe not even bad things, right? It kind of shows that there at least has been some human element there, and it's not fully automated. The paint jobs generally that I see on Fender are high quality. I think this is like your typical satin neck. The only real negative that I've got to kind of comment on this is that the neck shapes tend to be generically a little bit on the thin side. And I also kind of have a little bit of a feeling like this satin neck, as comfortable as it is, I do think it, because it's like exactly similar feeling to like a player, I do think it gives off a little bit less of a premium vibe. Yeah, what I would say is these are, you know, both mass-produced guitars that are made in factories, and what guitar companies have been telling us now for a couple of years, PRS particularly, like it shouldn't matter where a guitar is made. Fender, when they brought out the the standard, I think that one was made in China. You know, when they bring out these new guitars, they tell us, like, it doesn't matter where they're made. You know, we're putting Fender on the headstock because we believe that it's, you know, a great guitar, or like this isn't like a cost-cutting exercise. It's like the best guitar that we can make for that kind of money. You know, I feel like in some ways we should maybe just take them at their word. And I think honestly, if I play these two guitars side by side, I get more vibes of quality out of the Sire. I'll show you the handiwork as well. The fact is that both of these places are churning out guitars at a pretty bonkers rate, and the quality, I think, is going to vary based on that. But I've seen a lot of Sires. I think they're getting a lot of things right. And I've seen a lot of Fenders now, and it is kind of consistently, I'm getting an idea of what to expect if I were to unbox a Fender. And it's like maybe a few of the frets might be, you know, not perfect. Maybe there'd be some tooling marks on there. Maybe, you know, the fret edges might be not totally perfect. I would know to expect that it's a guitar that's going to sound pretty good. I know that it will come out of the factory with 9s on it in most cases, which I think sort of cheapens the feel of the guitars as well if you're used to playing 10s. But obviously, I guess most people must play 9s for them to bother doing that. And I know that in most cases with Fender guitars, that the neck is going to be a little on the skinnier side for me. And, you know, when you look at Sire at this kind of price, where they're doing not just like specs that are maybe better than the Fender in some cases, but also when the execution is really there, it seems easy to forget that there was a time where the Japanese were known for kind of making better guitars than Fender at a certain point. And I think these things kind of ebb and flow, right? And at this particular time, I think there's some really stiff competition out there for Fender. As much as like Fender have a real strong sort of monopoly, I think based on history as well, I do think that if you're going into a guitar shop and picking up a few of these instruments, you will find plenty of guitars that don't have Fender in the headstock that I think compete really well. Sire just being one of those. There's lots of them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Yeah, and what's your experience with these Fender guitars that are coming out recently? Or in the past as well. Is this a recent thing, or has it kind of always been the case that, you know, Fender guitars are consistently variable? Let me know your thoughts. It's not to say this is a bad guitar at all. That's not the point of the video. It's just that if this is the standard, that I think there's... There's plenty of other brands that can compete with it in terms of just pure quality of instrument and craftsmanship. I think like a Yamaha Pacifica Professional, for example, would really make this look kind of rudimentary. I don't know, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers for stopping by.